One day you notice you don't explain yourself anymore. Someone misunderstands you. You don't correct them. Someone gets angry. You don't defend yourself. Someone asks, "Why are you acting differently?" And you just say quiet. But here's what nobody tells you. People don't become this way for no reason. Something usually happens before a person stops explaining themselves. And once you understand what it is, you might finally understand why you've changed too. It usually doesn't happen because they suddenly stop caring. It happens because they're tired. Tired of saying, "That's not what I meant." Tired of correcting people. Tired of defending a decision they already made. Tired of writing a 5-paragraph message just to prevent someone from thinking badly of them. Maybe you've noticed this in yourself. Someone gets angry with you. Your first instinct is to explain. Someone becomes distant. You immediately wonder what you did. Someone misunderstands your intentions. You feel almost physically uncomfortable until you've corrected the story, because being misunderstood doesn't just feel annoying. Psychology gives us a simple reason for part of this. Humans have a strong need for belonging and social acceptance. So when we sense rejection, criticism, or disapproval, we naturally try to repair the situation. But some people become especially sensitive to it. For example, if you've experienced relationships where someone's mood could suddenly change, you may learn to constantly monitor other people's reactions. A shorter text, a different tone, a delayed reply, and suddenly your brain starts searching for an explanation. The explanation rarely gives you lasting peace, because the real problem wasn't the misunderstanding. It was the fear of being misunderstood. Then something interesting happens. After enough experiences, a person can move in the opposite direction. They stop explaining, not because they became heartless, because they finally noticed the pattern. Imagine telling someone, "I can't come tonight. I need some time alone." A healthy response might be, "Okay, take care." But imagine the response is, "Why? Are you avoiding me?" So you explain, "No, I'm just tired." Then they ask, "Tired of me?" So you explain again, "No, that's not what I mean." And suddenly, a simple boundary has become an interrogation. Eventually, you learn something. Some people aren't asking for an explanation. They're asking you to change your decision. And those are not the same thing. But there's an important distinction here. Stopping the need to constantly explain yourself is healthy. Using "I don't owe anyone an explanation" to avoid accountability is not. If you hurt someone, explain. If you made a mistake, own it. If your behavior affected someone, don't hide behind silence. Real emotional maturity isn't "I don't care what anyone thinks." It's "I care, but I don't need to control what everyone thinks." That's a huge difference, because eventually you realize something uncomfortable. You cannot control someone's interpretation of you. You can explain yourself perfectly, and they can still choose the version of you they want to believe. At that point, explaining more doesn't create understanding. It only creates exhaustion. This is why people sometimes become quieter as they get older. Not necessarily wiser, not necessarily colder, just more selective. They start asking, "Is this person actually trying to understand me? Or am I trying to convince them to understand me?" If it's the second one, they stop. They let the silence sit there. They let someone be disappointed. They let someone misunderstand. And that's difficult, because when you're used to explaining everything, silence can feel like you're doing something wrong. But you're not. You're learning that you can survive being misunderstood. You can survive someone being disappointed in you. You can survive someone deciding they don't like your choices. And once you understand that, you become much harder to manipulate with guilt. Maybe the biggest change isn't that you stopped explaining. It's that you stopped asking for permission. Permission to say no. Permission to need space. Permission to make a decision someone else doesn't like. Because when you explain every choice you make, sometimes you're not communicating anymore. You're asking, "Is it okay if I do this?" And eventually you realize, You don't need permission to live a life that makes sense to you. You can explain when it matters. You can listen when you're wrong. But you don't have to turn every decision into a defense. Because the moment you stop trying to convince everyone is the moment you finally start trusting yourself. And maybe that's why some people stop explaining themselves. They didn't lose their voice. They just stopped asking for permission to use it.